So welcome everyone to AGDN's Lunch and Learn series. It's been a while since we've seen you. Last month we had a great conversation, and we're very excited for today's conversation with a very special guest coming directly from Lima, Peru. So it's a big treat, I think, for us to be able to have one of our implementing partners present for us today. So Carmen Alvarez is a expert in international cooperation in Peru and works with a lot of indigenous populations. So today we will hear from her experience in what the convergence of these two has looked like in Peru over the years. She's been working in this area for over 30 years. So we have, I think, a lot to learn from her. She's a little nervous about her English, but I assure you, she speaks it great. But we are gonna support her if she needs some translation support. And yeah, go ahead, Carmen, take it away.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you. Good afternoon for everybody. And thank you for introducing myself, Anita. Well, my name is Carmen Alvarez Ponce de Leon, Executive Director of CADEP Maria Arguedas. And I have been working for almost 34 years in the institution. First of all, I want to say thank you, Anita, and for this opportunity, because it allows me to share with you valuable information about Peru, its context, its wealth, and also its difficulties, and how in this scenario, the international cooperation has an important role. I'm going to share with you some photos. I'm going to begin telling you something about CADEP. We are a non-profit organization, and we have been working for almost 55 years. Our main focus is to improve living conditions in the population in rural area. We work in 2 regions, Cusco and Apurimac, 5 provinces, 12 districts, and we serve approximately 1,100 families. Our objective is to contribute to intercultural education, to the affirmation, empowerment, and autonomy of the Quechua indigenous people, especially women and the most vulnerable sectors, and to the sustainable management of the environment. I will speak briefly about Peru and its characteristics. Due to its latitudinal location, Peru is among the 10 most diverse countries on Earth, known as mega diverse countries, for its diversity of ecosystems, species, genetic resources, and native cultures with very valuable ancestral knowledge. Peru has 28 climates of the 32 that are reported in the planet. It is one of the centers of origin of agriculture in the world, such as potato, tomatoes, pumpkins, chili, cocoa, quinoa, among others, that are part of security food for Peru and also for humanity. Peru is bordered, let me see. Peru is bordered by the Andean mountains system that has peaks up to 6,800 meters above sea level. We have 55 indigenous villages in the Andes and the Amazon, organized mainly in communities. The amazing cultural and linguistic wealth is expressed in the 48 original language that we have. Peru has 33 million inhabitants. 54% of the population lives on the coast. 30% in the mountains, and 16% live in the jungle. Despite this great cultural, biological, and valuable knowledge and traditional customs, Peru and the rural area in particular have serious difficulties, including poverty, discrimination, violence against women, consequences of climate change, poor educational and technology quality. And unfortunately, we suffer the problem of corruption and citizen insecurity as well. Those or these difficulties are mainly expressed in following aspects. One of that is economic poverty. Economic poverty, about this topic in 2020, was a year marked by the health crisis and the pandemic that produced the rise of the economic poverty by 10 percentage points, equivalent to more than 3 million people. That means 3 million new poor people who they are living in precariousness, which means that in 2020, rural poverty has had a 5 years decline. This issue is mainly due to thousands of people who left main cities to return to the origin places, to seek for better job, for better opportunities, to ensure their food mainly. However, this resulted in the rise of the poor indicators, and today represented by 10 million poor people in Peru. A high percentage of the rural population lives below the poverty line limit, which means that they live with almost $1.90 per dollar per day. Regarding the effects to climate change, it's important to mention that those who suffer its direct effects are unfortunately the families of the rural area. This is noticed in the presence of meteorological events such as rains, hailstorms, snowfalls, and also droughts. This affects the living condition of many peasant families, a process that is aggravated by the uncontrolled expansion of mining activities, especially due to the issue of water and their territories. There are another big pictures about it. Regarding the situation of women in rural area, on the other hand, as a result of the pandemic, there has been an increase in violence towards women, especially in rural areas. This percentage has increased due to the sexism and alcoholism. Even the cases of pregnancy of young women have increased because of sexual abuse during the confinement. In many places, women don't have access to education, paid jobs, or social participation, and they can't exercise their rights. In many cases, they are usually excluded from their communities. Another pictures. And about education, regarding the education, especially in rural areas, it is deficient. And it got worse during the pandemic because classes were only, in most of the cases, the connectivity was not enough or not exist, which affected directly the educational process in the children. Regarding the health, the health crisis caused by COVID-19 showed the precariousness of the Peruvian health system. The result was the death of 200,000 people, making the percentage of disease per million as double as USA. Health overall was displaced by prioritizing attention to the pandemic. I have another pictures for you. And then what is the role of the international cooperation in these scenarios for us, for the NGOs? In the process of overcoming the crisis in the rural area, the international cooperation has played a very important role in overcoming the most urgent problems in rural areas in recent decades, and especially in the last 2 years. Its contribution lies basically in the reduction of the gaps of inequity and the exclusion, as well as in the accompaniment and advice in diverse topics. However, the international cooperation has been progressively decreasing, among other aspects, because Peru was considered a middle-income country due to its increase in the export of raw materials, an indicator that did not express the equitable distribution of wealth in relation to the most vulnerable population. The support of international cooperation has contributed to reducing this gap. And when I said reducing the gap, I mean boys and girls acknowledge their rights. Women report cases of sexual violence to the authorities, empowerment and leadership of women, increasing teachers' intercultural competences in teacher preparation programs through professional development, reevaluation of their knowledge and traditional customs, improvement of health conditions, improvement of habitability conditions, development of mitigation and adaptation measures against climate change, urgent and decisive action to conserve and maintain biological diversity, development of technologies for the sustainable use of water and land, food sovereignty and rights-based approach, research on environment issues. As a final thought, Peru and its rural population has a great biological and cultural potential that has not yet been recognized, and that can contribute with its ancestral knowledge to the improvement of the quality of life of the Andean population and to the humanity in the face to uncertain the scenarios of climate change in relation to food and pandemics, just for mention some problems. In this process, I want to recognize the important role that of the international cooperation. Without their support, contribution, accompaniment, we would not be able to ensure that rural population have their own voice in order to become authors of a better destiny. Organizations like Fundación Esperanza, for example, that accompanies us in this challenge, are part of the institutions we learn from. We ensure that we will continue on this way and in this dream of achievement, a country with justice and equity. I feel that the power to transform lives is in our hands. And I want to say, if we can dream it, we can do it. And I want to finish my speech showing these pictures. And with you can change their face, and now we have a smile in their faces. And thank you for your audition. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen. If you don't mind unsharing your screen so that we can see everyone and move on to the question and answer portion of our presentation today. There we go. I'd like to see everyone's faces when we get to this point. So please, if there are any questions or points for discussion, feel free to unmute yourself. Carmen does ask that if you're going to have a question that you speak slowly so she can understand and answer your question accurately.
Carmen, I have a quick question for you. I was just wondering, how in your community do you figure out which issue you tackle first? Because it seems like there's so many important things. So how do you figure out what you do first?
Anita, ¿me ayudas?
Sí, que en las comunidades cuando tienen varios diferentes problemas, ¿cómo identifican cuáles son las prioridades o con cuál problema empezar primero?
At first, we talk with the community because they know better than us what they need at first, what they need to pay attention at first. That's why we talk, we work with the community. We work in the communities across the different teams in different places that we work. And we have been working for almost 55 years, and the population know us, and they talk to us and what they need, what is the priorities for that people. It's okay, it's correct.
Thank you for that.
No, it's okay, thank you too. Thank you.
Hi, Carmen. My name is Daniel. I actually run a small nonprofit that works in Cusco. So I spent a lot of time in Peru, and I'm just wondering what kind of water projects have you guys engaged in the past?
Proyectos de agua, habla Anita, porfis. No te escucho.
Perdón, ¿qué tipo de proyectos de agua han participado en el pasado en la área de Cusco y alrededor?
In the past and also in the present, we have been working by ancestral technologies using by that they use usually using the ancestral knowledge by they use usually. For example, I don't know how to say, Anita, siembra y cosecha de agua.
Daniel te entiende, él habla español.
Ay, súper, Daniel.
Puedo entender, si quieres puedes hablar en español.
Yeah, I'm sorry because another people, but usualmente trabajamos con la población recurriendo a los conocimientos ancestrales de la población, respetando sus conocimientos ancestrales. Entonces, ellos tienen la cultura de, por ejemplo, en este caso, en la cultura subsistencia, tener que utilizar sus conocimientos ancestrales, y por eso daba el ejemplo de siembra y cosecha de agua. Y nosotros con ellos trabajamos actualmente el tema de siembra y cosecha de agua. Estamos trabajando cochas o lagunas artificiales para que en época de lluvia ellos acumulen agua para que les sirva después en época de estiaje poder regar los viveros, sus plantaciones, o dar de alimentar a los animales. Y con este tema del cambio climático, el tema agua es un recurso que se pone muy en riesgo, ¿no? Porque a veces en épocas donde debería llover ya no llueve, o cuando no llueve sí llueve. Entonces es algo muy cambiante, y estos temas los trabajamos con ellos. Igual en sus sembríos, diversos temas de regadío.
Entiendo.
Gracias, Daniel, por tu pregunta.
Claro que sí, tengo otro más. entonces, normalmente los proyectos de agua son proyectos para colección, para tener más agua en el tiempo seca, por ejemplo.
Correcto, correcto. Es más, trabajamos en un territorio que se llama la Nación Queros y algo que muy usualmente pide la población es agua porque ellos viven generalmente de sus alpacas. Consumen la carne de alpaca, venden la lana de alpaca y hay mucha mortandad a causa de que no hay agua. Y si no hay agua, no hay pastos. Y si no hay pastos, no se alimentan bien. Entonces, ahí viene todo este ciclo de deficiencias y malas condiciones para ellos por el tema de cambio climático.
Entiendo. Pues mi organización hacemos proyectos de agua para tratamiento, pero también estamos interesados por ejemplo, cosecha de aguas también. Entonces, podemos hablar en otro tiempo. Estoy interesado para conectar contigo.
Claro que sí, Daniel, con mucho gusto compartimos información y la experiencia que venimos teniendo en CADEP acerca de este tema. Con gusto.
Gracias, con gusto.
A ti, gracias.
Apologies to non-Spanish speakers, but I love when stuff like this happens because
I'm
it's
sorry.
organic collaboration and you just need to let it happen in whatever language it needs to happen. I can definitely provide a quick summary of points if y'all are interested. Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, if you had to rank the top 3 issues or needs for rural communities in Peru, what would they be? The top 3 or 4 or 5?
¿Cuál es la pregunta de los 5 tópicos, Anita?
Los problemas más prioritarios, los retos más grandes de las comunidades rurales.
In this case is to pay attention to the water and the health. The water, because of climate change, they are changing every cycle, todo ciclo, and health because of the pandemic and another disease that the people has been suffered, but they don't access nowadays to the hospitals because all of the attention is for the COVID. I mean, it's water and health. Besides education, economy, violence against women, I guess this is 2 main topics.
How is agriculture? Is agriculture doing well?
Not at all because of climate change. I showed you corn that is not in good.
Right.
The photo is not in good. Is not good because when it's typical to rain, because in this month, for example, since December, January, February, and March is time to rain, but it's not raining in this. That's why the agriculture is suffered a lot, and the seguridad alimentaria,
Food security.
Food security is in risk.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know of any solar powered irrigation?
¿Algo de irrigación, Anita?
Sistemas de irrigación utilizando electricidad solar.
In many cases, we put solar energy across the termas solares. I don't know how is termas
Water heaters, solar powered water heaters.
Water heater, okay.
Well, in the houses.
But not a pump, not a solar powered pump to pump from a well up from the ground and then distribute into the field?
No, that kind of system, no.
Okay, thank you.
Questions. I have a question for you, Carmen.
Yes, question for me.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about how the current state of the government and politics and policy affects your work and how it has affected your work over the last several decades.
Acerca del apoyo del gobierno y del Estado, ¿te entiendo bien?
¿Cómo el estado del gobierno y de la política y las pólizas ha afectado tu trabajo actualmente y en las últimas décadas?
Anita, ¿te puedo responder en español, por favor?
Ok, pero poco a poquito para poder
Poquito a
traducir.
poquito. Ya,
Ok.
gracias. Bueno, el Estado en muchos aspectos ha estado ausente en las últimas décadas. Uno de los temas que más nos afecta a la población peruana, lastimosamente, es la corrupción. Y eso no deja que haya un avance en diferentes temas: salud, educación, economía.
So unfortunately, over the last several decades, the government has been absent from the areas where it is needed most in terms of social services. They suffer a lot from corruption, and this affects all areas that she spoke about. So health, food security, agriculture, it unfortunately impacts everything.
Y uno de estos aspectos que se ha visto de una forma muy dramática ha sido durante la pandemia, ¿no? Que si bien es cierto en todos los países, quizás era algo que se venía adaptando día a día. Sin embargo, también en pleno de la pandemia, en emergencia sanitaria, se veía el tema de la corrupción y la no atención equitativa a todos los sectores.
So one of the areas where it has most recently affected was during the pandemic. Unfortunately, they continue to see increased corruption, and you know, the resources not getting to the places where it needed to get to, including the lack of equity of the allotment of those resources.
Sin embargo, es política nuestra trabajar articuladamente con los gobiernos locales, es decir, con los municipios de cada zona, de tal manera que impulsemos con mayor potencia, con mayor empeño algún trabajo, y por eso establecemos convenios de ayuda conjunta. A ese nivel van nuestras coordinaciones de trabajo articulado.
However, in spite of that, it is still one of CADEP's main goals or ways that they work is to partner with and work in association with municipal governments. So at the municipal level, they develop MOUs and agreements so that the work that they're doing, you know, can have a greater impact and is in articulation with the government. It may not be at the federal level, but it is at the municipal level and can therefore, you know, be a little bit more equitable in its distribution. Thank you.
Gracias.
Other questions?
Carmen, entonces, cuando estás empezando un proyecto, el primer paso para tu organización es para hablar con las municipalidades y después con cada comunidad, ¿o qué es el proceso para empezar un proyecto?
Sí, gracias por tu pregunta. Algo que siempre tenemos en cuenta es pedir permiso para ingresar a la casa. Entonces, primero es que hablamos, puede ser de manera simultánea. Yo pensaría que es primero con la comunidad para que ellos expresen de primera mano cuáles son sus necesidades, sus prioridades, y juntamente con ellos es que elaboramos las propuestas de proyectos. En un segundo momento, o quizás paralelamente, también hablamos con las autoridades, de tal manera que entablamos vínculo estrecho para ingresar con mayor potencia, con mayor fuerza al territorio, atendiendo la problemática de ellos, que nacen de ellos. Por eso uno de los, en nuestra visión, decimos que ellos deben ser autores de su propio cambio, escuchar sus voces. Uh-huh.
A quick translation, Daniel's question was, do you go to the communities first or to the municipalities first when you're going to start a new project? What is the process? And Carmen said that sometimes it happens simultaneously, but it is CADEP's belief that it is best to first ask for permission to enter the home. So basically going to the community and asking, is it okay if we work with you? What can we help you with? And then either at that time or at a later point, you bring in the municipalities, the authorities, and in conjunction with the community is how the proposals and the projects are developed. She says that even in their mission, vision, and strategic planning, they say specifically it is important for them that the community is the author of the change that they want to see.
Gracias.
Other questions? I see a question here in the chat from Elena. I'm just going to read it. Is there a local culture of philanthropy? Do you see an increase in local support during the pandemic?
¿Me ayudas, Anita?
Que si hay una cultura local de caridad o filantropía, y si dice que hubo un incremento en apoyo durante la pandemia de la comunidad local de los peruanos en sí.
Sí, sí, creo que es un aspecto que sí ha salido mucho a relucir en este tiempo de pandemia a nivel general, es la empatía, por ejemplo. La empatía, la solidaridad, el entendimiento mutuo. Creo que ha sido a nivel general este tema que ha fluido y que si algo bueno nos está trayendo la pandemia, creo que es eso, y sacar lecciones aprendidas de eso, ¿no? La solidaridad sobre todo, que sí se puso en relieve mucho en este tiempo.
Something that really did come forth during the pandemic is that sense of empathy and solidarity among the local communities. And that's something that she is grateful for, that they saw that empathy in action, and that it continues to kind of go from there. Good question. Any other questions?
Carmen, ¿qué es el proceso para identificar una comunidad? Sí, es la pregunta.
Ya, está bien. Bueno, normalmente, según nuestros estatutos, la orientación es trabajar con poblaciones rurales altoandinas de la Sierra Sur del Perú. Por eso nos hemos identificado de trabajar entre Cusco y Apurímac. Y normalmente recurrimos a data de cuáles son las poblaciones que se encuentran en extrema pobreza y que puedan estar dentro de nuestro circuito de acción. Básicamente es eso. Hacia los años 68, cuando inició el CADEP, comenzamos en una población que se llama Anta o Moyepata, y entonces hemos ido agrandando nuestro circuito de acción, porque un aspecto importante es también dejar saber cuáles son nuestros logros, y la población se acerca a nosotros. En muchos casos yo he recibido visitas de líderes de otras regiones donde no tenemos pensado intervenir y nos piden intervenir ahí. Entonces, mucho hace cuál es la capacidad nuestra de gestionar proyectos también, y que lastimosamente la cooperación internacional ha venido decreciendo. Entonces, no hay mucho tampoco por expandirnos, que sería nuestro deseo, ¿no?
Daniel's question was, how do you pick what communities you work in versus others, right? And in CADEP's founding, they established that they were going to work in this very particular geographic area between the states of Cusco and Apurímac, and serving the poorest communities and families. And they often rely on data to identify what some of those communities are. She says that often they also receive requests from leaders and other communities outside of that space. So it's really important to them at that point to, reflect on what their capacity is, and if they can go beyond that, then they can help. But usually, they're kind of confined to their geographic space because of the capacity that they're at right now. So they'd like to help all communities in all regions of Peru, but as you heard, the need is great, and there's only so much one nonprofit can do at a time.
Sí, Anita, y si me permites comentar, si bien es cierto, intervenimos directamente entre Cusco y Apurímac, pero también tenemos proyectos a nivel de otras regiones de Perú, por ejemplo, Huánuco o Piura, donde intercambiamos o aprendemos unos de otros, por ejemplo, acerca del tema de la papa, el tema del maíz, que enriquece mucho nuestro trabajo y bueno, nos hace más potentes en la intervención y en el conocimiento para las otras poblaciones, ¿no?
She's adding that at this point, they also do have very specific projects in other parts of the country, including Piura, ¿y dónde más?
Huánuco.
Huánuco, that are more specific to a given topic. So for example, they have a potato focused project, bringing back an ancestral type of potato that's resistant to climate change. And that allows them to do some sort of exchange, information exchange, educational exchange between the communities that they work in on a regular basis, and these like special projects. Do we have any other questions? Más preguntas?
Si me permites un comentario, Anita.
Claro.
Una estrategia que resulta muy interesante para beneficio de la población son los intercambios culturales. Por ejemplo, pobladores de la nación Quero que se van a otra región, por ejemplo, Puno, para aprender de otras culturas y ver cómo lo que está en otra región pueden aprovecharlo para beneficio suyo. Entonces es una estrategia bastante importante que fortalece sus capacidades y ese es un tema bastante importante para nosotros. Más que construir casas o termas o fogones mejorados, es el fortalecimiento de sus capacidades.
So an important distinction and strategy that CADEP puts in place, and I think this is one of the reasons, personally, side note, one of the reasons that CADEP's work really stands out is that they focus on this intercultural exchange among Peruvians, but you're taking Indigenous from one area and physically traveling with them to a completely different area of the country where they can have a cultural exchange, a knowledge exchange of just lifestyles, agriculture, and everything else in between. They've really honed in on that. And aside from, building an improved stove or a better house or a water system, they really value this a cultural exchange. And if I can add, voy a agregar un poquito de mi parte, Carmen, si me permites. Claro. If I can add a little bit from my perspective of what I've seen come out of this work, it can really be life-changing and eye-opening to some of these communities who've never left their region to learn from someone across the country, so to speak. And it's made strides, and we've seen a lot of really great work come out of this, and communities coming back and saying, well, we want that too. We want that improvement too, whereas before they didn't even know that was possible. So it's one of the things that I value about CADEP's work, that they really focus on that.
Gracias, Anita.
Me encanta este perspectivo también. I know for us, like even just in the Cusco region, if we take, someone from a community that we've worked in to a prospective community or vice versa, like their willingness to trust us and kind of see that this could provide value really increases. I have a question, but I think I might need you to translate this one.
Sure.
I'm wondering, like, just how, I don't know many nonprofits or people that run nonprofits in Peru. And I'm wondering, like, do they get most of their funding from donations, or do they get government funding, or how do they operate?
Great question. Que él no conoce muchas organizaciones o muchos líderes de ONGs en Perú, pero le interesa saber cómo reciben su financiamiento. ¿Tienen donantes locales? ¿Reciben donaciones de otras fundaciones afuera? ¿O qué es su primario recurso financiero?
Ya. Gracias por la pregunta. Acceder a fondos del Estado son bastante difíciles. Demanda mucho trámite, es muy burocrático y casi no llega y llega solamente a nivel del manejo del Estado si es que hubiera fondos. Usualmente las ONGs de esta data, de estos años como los nuestros, trabajamos con financieras tradicionales, le llamamos, que nos vienen apoyando de hace muchos años, 30, 40 años, y que a su vez ellos reciben fondos de los gobiernos, de sus gobiernos federales, por ejemplo, Alemania, Holanda. Eso por una parte. Por otra parte, tenemos financiadores que no tradicionales o fundaciones como las de Esperanza, por ejemplo. Entonces, trabajamos a ese nivel y lo que suele suceder actualmente es de que esas financiadoras tradicionales que te aprueban proyectos grandes, normalmente te piden un fondo de contrapartida que va en un porcentaje de 40% más o menos. Yo te doy 60% y tú me aseguras conseguir 40% para aprobarte el proyecto. Es más o menos un poco la figura, cómo se da. Ahora, fondos que podemos nosotros recaudar como organizaciones, non-profit organization, son poquísimos. Es muy poco y la pandemia nos sentó mucho más en ese sentido.
Funding available at the government level, the Peruvian government level, is really, really limited. It's very bureaucratic. It's very difficult to access funds if there are any funds available. So they've never really gone that route. It's very rare that they do. And I think that probably applies to most nonprofits as well. So other than that, there's kind of two funding strategies, what they call the traditional funding, which is basically organizations that get funding from their own country governments. Some of the examples are Germany and Belgium, what would be like a USAID for us, and then they apply for those grants. Those grants are typically very large for multi-year sometimes, but also require, it's kind of like a matching grant. So they'll give up to usually like 60%, and then the implementing organization is required to put up the 40%. So that's what she calls the traditional funding that they've been working with for like 30, 40 years. The non-traditional funding is working with foundations. In this case, Esperanza kind of fulfills that role where we fund them through our own fundraising, our own donors, kind of pass along that fundraising to them. And they in turn can use the funds that we send as that matching part for the other funds, right? So it's leveraging the funding kind of across the board. Voy a hacer una pregunta de seguimiento, Carmen. ¿Eso es común para otras ONGs en Perú o es algo único de CADEP? I'm asking if this is common across other NGOs in Peru or if it's specific to CADEP situation.
No, es en general. Es en general y esto es a raíz de la reducción de los fondos de cooperación internacional para organizaciones como nuestras a nivel general. Y un poco la dificultad está en que si yo no llego a mi porcentaje de contribución, la financiera tampoco me da el porcentaje de su contribución. Entonces, muchas veces no podríamos lograr la meta, nuestros objetivos. Y por eso contribuciones como la de Esperanza para nosotros es muy importante porque aseguramos el logro de los objetivos.
So she says that this is the case across the board for most nonprofits in Peru, and that is due to the overall decrease in funding from international cooperation over the last couple decades. And side note, that's in my perspective, I think that's due to the fact that they're listed as a middle to high income country, even though not really. So, ¿qué fue lo otro que dijiste?
De la cooperación, de los fondos, la contrapartida, si no logramos la contrapartida.
Yeah, so the tricky part there is that if the local nonprofits aren't able to come up with their matching part of the grant, then the grantor doesn't give them the full amount that they had committed to. So she's saying that that's why it's so important for them to find other sources of funding so that they can, you know, produce what they expected to and promised to. Any other lingering questions or discussion points? Anything you learned that you didn't know before? Okay, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to share in the chat. That's CADEP's website and Carmen's email address if you want to reach out to her directly. I also have a little video that we'd like to share just to kind of give you a glimpse of Peru. And if you have any questions after that, then we can address your questions. I'm going to share my screen really quick. Oh, I don't know if we're going to be able to hear it. Can you hear it? ¿Lo pueden escuchar? No.
No, no, Anita.
Oh. I'm sorry, I don't know how to switch it, but you can watch it.
Está bien, Anita. Son imágenes, entonces. No te preocupes. We just wanted to share a little bit of that. I will send the link so you can listen to it because it has really beautiful music set to the imagery. So I apologize for that. So yeah, do we have any other last minute questions? This is your chance. Anita, si me permites, la intención de mostrar el video era un poco mostrar a su vez la geografía nuestra, ¿no? La topografía nuestra tan variada, tan inaccesible en muchos casos, y cómo en ese contexto nuestras poblaciones se adaptan, la agricultura se adapta, y nada, era mostrar un poco la topografía nuestra.
So the purpose of showing this video was to illustrate the diversity of geography and topography that these communities live in. As you saw, it's a great range. And if you add on top of that the layer of climate change, it kind of gives you an idea of the adaptability of these communities and the constant change that they're having to face in order to survive. Well, thank you all very much for your participation, engagement, and great questions. We will have this recording available on YouTube. I will share links afterwards. If any, I know there's a couple names in here that I don't recognize. So I'm gonna drop a link in here for our little registration form. If you fill that out, you'll be added to our distribution list and get all our links and our newsletters and all the fun stuff that we send. So you can be in the know for our upcoming Lunch and Learn series and other events that we'll be planning. And we hope that you'll join us. The more the merrier. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, everybody. I am sorry about my English, and I am excited because this meeting. Thank you.